Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is? It is 8 a.m. Saturday morning, time for Sales Logic, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss everything that you need to know to sell more effectively. I'm hanging out here with my partner, Mark Hunter. Mark, we got a good show today?
We do, and I'm kind of pumped. For some reason, I'm pumped to talk sales this morning. We're going to be talking about how to ensure your value proposition is relevant. Yeah, because, things keep changing out there. And, it's amazing what worked 6 months ago may not be working today. We've got a great question coming in from Susanna in Miami. Great book. Yeah, it's got a good show. Let's start. Let's go.
All right. All right. Welcome back to Sales Logic. Every week, Mark and I come to you to talk about one of our favorite subjects, and that is sales. We kick off the show every week with a question from you, the audience. We have a hot topic. And remember, if you want to be a part of Sales Logic, just put your question here in the chat. Go to saleslogicpodcast.com. Reach out to Mark. Reach out to me. We want to feature you here. We feature a hot topic. We recommend a book. And because we want you to leave with return on investment, we have a lightning round. So, Mark, what is on tap for today?
Well, the topic is how to ensure your value proposition is relevant. The question comes from Susanna in Miami. She writes, I'm in the hotel business selling to corporate. Wow, this space has become so competitive and pricing such an issue. Yeah, we've experienced that. How do I continue to grow, win business without giving up on price and giving away what are already too slim margins? Because their costs have gone through the roof.
Yeah, that's a tough industry right now. Well, the best way to get price off the table is to ensure that your value proposition is worth the price that you're charging. It is a myth, I believe, a huge myth that people are so price sensitive. They will default to price when they don't think that there's any other reason to pay for it. And, that's kind of a smart decision from a customer standpoint, right? I mean, if it's apples to apples, why not buy the cheaper one? So I would say my biggest piece of advice is I'd stop selling right now. And I would go out and I would really, with 100% heart, just listen to customers. Try to figure out where the pain point is, the biggest pain point, so that you can figure out how to solve that problem.
That's so spot on, because price is not the issue that I think we as salespeople make price out to be. Because, I love to use the line, in the absence of trust, price is everything. And we can't really demonstrate a value proposition until we've created trust, because we don't understand what is it that the customer is looking for. Tonight, my wife and I are going out to dinner with friends, and we're going to a very nice restaurant. What's very interesting is I'm sure right around that restaurant, there are going to be a lot of cheaper restaurants, but we're going to this very nice restaurant because we want, as a few couples, we want a very unique experience, and we want to enjoy the evening. It's the event. You see, it's the outcome. It's the expectation of what we're looking for. In the hotel business, this is the same thing. This is the exact, you have to really ask the client. And so many times in the hotel business, what you're dealing with is not really the decision maker. You're just dealing with somebody who's paid to negotiate the price. I'm going to tell you, Susanna, you got to get further up the food chain to really understand, what is the meeting all about? What's the purpose of the meeting? What's the objective? Who is coming? What are the type of people coming? What are their expectations? When you begin to frame those up, then you can begin to understand what your value proposition looks like. But other than that, all you're doing is you're saying X number of seats, X number of meals, X amount of space. And you're right, it is just dollars and cents. You're going to lose every time.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, you're bringing up such great points, and our chat is really hot here. I want to get some of these, some of these questions and some of these statements in here. But you said something. You're talking about the restaurant that you and your wife are going to with friends, and then you talked about hotels. And what this really makes me think about is the importance of understanding your prospect as it relates to your value proposition. Because, it is summertime as we are filming this. In the summertime, you are rare to get me out of mountain biking clothes, golfing clothes, or tennis clothes. I do not want to go to a high-end restaurant at all. I don't want to go because eating is a waste of my time in the summer. I want to be outside doing something active. But then you mentioned hotels. I will pay all day long. I am not staying in a cruddy hotel. I'm not staying in what probably a lot of people would say is an okay hotel. I pay a lot of money because I want a really nice hotel. I was just talking with a friend of mine the other day. They don't pay very much for hotels because they don't stay in them very long. So it isn't a good investment for them. I want to come back from a day of activity and be in a really nice hotel room. You have really got to understand, does your Trip said this really well in here, and I want to put his comment up, and then I want to get to Roberta's question. This is brilliant, and take this today. Trip says increase value where clients see value, not where you do. This is critical and probably one of the biggest mistakes I see salespeople make. We sit in a room and we decide what the value is that our client wants. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You need to talk to them and figure out where their pain point is.
This brings up a key point that we look at this as what's your value proposition? No, it's what the customer's value proposition is. We have to reframe our thinking to really put into perspective, what is the customer looking for? Because you're right, we're going to a very nice restaurant and it's going to be wonderful because actually that is preceding a play that we're going to. You see, that's tied into another event. So it's an entire evening event. And see, again, Susanna, hotel, you have to understand these people coming for this meeting. Where are they coming from? What else is happening with the meeting? You have to understand the pre and the post, all of the pieces. And this is where we as salespeople are so quick to rush to judgment. We make an assumption. We know what the customer is looking for. We don't. And what I like to say is, I don't know what the customer is looking for until they talk about it twice. If they talk about it twice, then it begins to say, okay, this is important. I love Roberta. She's saying, hey, how do I figure out how to put a price on my value proposition? Wow, we could craft a show around this one.
It probably would be. It probably would be a good show around that one. Mark, I want to get to Roberta's question, but gosh, you've said so much that I want to jump on. Number one is, you look for a customer to say it twice. I'm looking for multiple customers to say it. I mean, that's when I know there's a problem in the industry and something is shifting and something is changing. You're listening to customers. It's so funny. I was downstairs fixing a cup of coffee earlier and I was thinking, I probably need to go on a little listening tour this week because I feel like my value prop is getting a little bit stale. Now, understand, I probably had more leads this week than I have in the last couple of weeks combined. I mean, things are working, but I feel like I could tune my value proposition in. And I was thinking to myself, I just need to go out and I need to listen. The other thing I want to say, I want to talk about this evening that you're having with dinner and a play. And I want to underline how much value propositions change. I said in the summertime, you will never get me to do that. The moment the season changes, there's this really high-end restaurant here in Asheville that my husband and I love to go to with friends. It was just the food is fine. The atmosphere is amazing and it's really high priced. We call it our winter restaurant because we love it and we love the experience. So even like with me, my value prop in the summer is different than my value prop in the winter. And I think that's I'm getting ready to do a brand new course. And we're doing it on the keeping your value proposition relevant, because value propositions change that much. All right, we have got to answer Roberta's question. How do I figure out how to put a price on my value proposition?
I love asking the question of the customer, how have you made decisions like this in the past? Now, I love asking that question early on. Why? Because I'm listening for them in terms of what they feel are the critical factors in terms of what they're looking for. So I love asking that question. I also love asking, so help me understand. So what is the result you want to get? What's the outcome you want to achieve? And you begin to really quantify and qualify what is that outcome? And then I can back in. It goes back to that old example that, you can have two people on the same airplane, same flight, and one will only pay one price and one will pay an astronomically high price because of what is the outcome? What are they expecting to do when they land in that other city? So you have to understand what is the outcome.
Yeah, this is a really great question, Roberta, because I just had this yesterday. I've got a client that I'm working with that has sort of an out of a box problem. It's not, I do see it as a trend across the industry, but it was a little bit different for them. I hadn't priced anything like that before. And I went into a series of questions determining what is going to be the difference when I deliver the service in their industry. How is it going to position? And for me, it's going to position them from going from one level of annual revenue to another level of annual revenue, which is pretty significant shift. Because of that, I really thought about, what I'm doing for them and the difference that I'm going to make. And that's how I priced it. But I think how you price it is almost irrelevant. It's how I communicated the price I was asking. And I may be wrong, Roberta, but I think that's really what you're asking me. Because I feel like had I just said it's going to be this amount, I think it would have shocked them. But when I related it to the difference that the service I'm creating is going to make, completely different.
And then when you begin to frame up and you ask the customer, and you can frame it in many different ways, but what's the risk if they do not achieve that outcome?
Great point.
You're working with that client and they want to increase the revenue. What's the downside if you don't achieve that revenue target? What happens to your business? What are the other, and you begin to get them talk about it. And what happens is then they begin to realize that they have to achieve that level, they've got to have you be able to deliver that, because otherwise they won't be able to achieve the outcome. So it really is, the customer will take you to the price, and they'll take you to a much higher price than you realize. Salespeople, this is another big mistake that we have. We walk in with a presumption of a price. And that is so wrong, because so many times what happens is we walk in with a presumption of a low price. Don't walk in with that. Walk in, because the price we walk in with in our head, 9 times out of 10, is the price we wind up putting on the table. And that's wrong. Very wrong.
The other thing that I think about price is that it is, I think as salespeople, we get too caught up in winning the deal. And, and Roberta really wants to know how to put a price on a value proposition. That's a very gray area. And you've got to put a price on that seems fair to you. Like, I bid something the other day and I got it like that. And I knew in that moment, I just bid it too low. But I'm okay with that because I'm happy with what I'm getting for it. I feel good about it was a good fee. It's good. I feel really strong about it. But I knew when I got it that fast, I knew I probably could have bid it higher. Now, I would be upset about that if I didn't feel good about the price that I put on it. At the same time, anytime you bid something too low and you win, we've all been there. I mean, just don't do that. It's better to lose it.
Well, and this comes back to the whole thing that don't rush to put the price on the table. So many people, they rush. I have found this time and time again that I don't I don't rush to put the time on the table because I want the customer to be able to share what's the pain, what's the issue, what are the situations happening. And what ultimately achieves is you achieve a price point that matches the value proposition that the customer is looking for. But if you wind up walking in too low, yeah, you can do it for that. But then, ouch, you've hurt yourself. You see, your value proposition also doesn't have to be one value proposition. A technique that I'll oftentimes do with price is here's price A, and this is going to help you achieve all of your outcomes, and it's got X, X, and X in it. And then if we can't achieve that, I could give them a lower price, but I'm going to take something out of it. I'm not going to discount the price.
Such a great point.
Price. Because otherwise, what you've done is you've told every other customer you've done work for that they overpaid.
Yeah.
So I will change a price, but something has got to come out of it. So Suzanne in Miami, you may be quoting this price and so forth. And the customer says, that's too much. We can't do it. Fine. Okay. But we have to take something out. Because as soon as you in your own mind, Susanna, start discounting your price just for the sake of discounting price, guess what? You're going to discount every deal. You are going to discount every deal from that point on. You've got to have variables in there that you can pull out.
Yeah, I love what Jeffrey is saying here. Such a great point about a value prop. It needs to be simple and it needs to be clear. Keeping it to one statement is probably your best course of action. And think about a value proposition this way. When a customer sees it, do they think, I need that? Value propositions are to tell the customer you understand them. They are not to help the customer understand you. I'm going to repeat that. People will choose you and they will pay a price because you understand them. A value prop makes me feel a connection to you. It is not about you understanding my company and what I do. It is about me saying, I feel your pain. I understand the problem. Here's how we can solve it. And keeping that to one statement, such a great point.
And that's understand the customer. And what happens is you're creating trust. Remember, go back to my line early on. In the absence of trust, price becomes everything. Claire is jumping in with a ton of comments here. Oh, we got Brad. Stay true to your brand while it's essential to evolve. Ensure that any changes to your value proposition align with your brand's core. This is so key because otherwise what happens is you may close the sale, but you will lose everything going forward. We got so many comments coming in here. This is absolutely, I love Natalie, listening is so important. And this is why salespeople, we race to share information. And it goes back to an old premise. If we spend more time developing the questions we want to ask versus the statements we want to share, we'd close more deals at a higher price. Oh man. Wow.
Yeah. So Jeffrey took a stab here at Roberta's question. So I wanted to put that up there. To know what the number is, you need to know what your value or hourly rate is. How much work are you needing to do times your hourly rate? What should you charge? And do not undersell your rate. Roberta, the thing I want to add to this too is that like what this taught me when I threw a price out there and I got the deal immediately. I feel good about the price that I did, so I'm comfortable with that. But it has now put the mark in the back of my head that maybe it is time to charge more and to increase the price that I charge on this particular service, because maybe the market, would bear it. But most importantly, to get the right price on your value proposition, get the value proposition clear and understand the difference the value prop is going to make in terms of revenue, peace of mind, time, whatever quantifying piece that is for your customer, and then relate your price to that.
Claire brings up a great point. She says, just let the customer talk. You'll learn so much. And this brings up an interesting point. So many times what happens is we'll ask the customer a question and they share something and then we move on. The real value statement the customer shares is in the second response that they give. In other words, you ask them a question, they share, but then you ask them a question on what they shared. It's that next piece of information and the piece that follows. That's where you really begin to understand What is it that the customer is looking for? And again, go back and frame it not as your value proposition, but the customer's value proposition.
Yeah, I love the question that question statement that Tripp has here. How has value proposition evolved over the past 12 months? I often think that what customers say to us, we have to read between the lines to get the value proposition. I'm going to give you a quick example. I was down at High Point University about 6 months ago, and it's a university here in High Point, North Carolina, and run by Nito Quabain, and it's been incredibly successful. And I was asking him, in the wake of everything that is going on, they have values of God, family, country, and I said, in the wake of everything that is going on in our world today, how are you growing your organization with with basically a set of values that can be controversial in today's? I happened to be down there at Christmas, and the campus was decorated for Christmas. And this is what Nito said to me. He said, first of all, you have to understand our values, and our God is whoever you want to pray to. Family is however you interpret. We are about the United States of America. So on this campus, you take a knee to the American flag. He said, but when I get on the stage, I understand that parents want two things. They want their children to be safe, and they want their children well educated so that when they leave college, they can get a job, have a career, and have a happy life. No parent shows up on campus and says exactly that, but he knows enough from listening to his target market that that those are the two fears and those are the two goals. And if he can meet those, his university will grow. So I think how the value proposition has changed is that it's gone from this fancy thing we try to create in marketing to really getting in there and trying to figure out what the customer or the client or the target market is fearing or most wants. And when we can interpret that and solve that problem, our business will grow.
Great point. And that plays on what Prem asked here. Prem says, how do you match service to price? Customers always want cheaper and sustainable solutions. They do, but they need to achieve their outcome. Dr. Nito Quabain is talking about how customers families, parents want their children to be secure and a great education. See, it's the outcome. It's not trading dollars for hours. Oh, wow, room and board is X, but they're only there X number of nights. Never wrap your value proposition around a time period of X number of hours or X number of days. You are going to set yourself up for a bad experience, regardless. It is the outcome. What ultimately is going to be achieved by the client, the customer, because of buying from you.
Yeah, I disagree with this. I do. Customer does not always want cheaper and sustainable.
Okay.
If you don't take anything else from this podcast today, take that no, the customer defaults to cheaper. Every single person on this podcast today pays a higher price for something they value that one of their friends pays less for. Today, I could go play golf at a public golf course somewhere and pay $50 for a round, but I belong to a country club because that has value to me that is way more than $55 a round. Mark is going to a really beautiful dinner tonight and a really beautiful play. He could go to the hot dog stand and they could go listen to a free concert. Understand the value proposition is what takes price off the table. If you lose on price, you lost for two reasons. If your customer is pushing you on price, you chose the wrong customer and you did not sell risk and value. They don't understand what they're getting for what you're paying them.
This is why when a customer calls you up and says, hey, what's your price? You do not give them the price.
Right.
Fast price equals no sale. Very simple.
Yeah.
I'll give you a fast price. No. Or I'll give you a fast price. It's usually never less than $1 billion. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you literally have, because again, you don't know. I love Bill's question here. Do having better qualifying questions give you a better idea of the price range? Yes. That's why I said early on, I love asking questions. So how have you made decisions like this early on? This is even before I've really begun getting into the outcome, because they're relaxed, they're comfortable. I want them to share. And I really have to understand, how does this help you achieve X? How does this achieve? What are your goals? What are your plans? There's a financial planner question I love asking. And that is, you know, you're sitting with a potential client, you say, paint me a picture of what retirement looks like. Paint me a picture. And whatever they share, you say, let's expand the canvas a little more, share with me a little more. And you begin to get that potential client painting this picture of what their retirement looks like. Now I can kind of begin to start backing in. And then I can begin understanding. So what is your tolerance of risk? But again, you have to get the customer to begin sharing with you.
Yeah. I want to add to Bill, then we'll get to the book in the lightning round, because we're just about 3 minutes from out of time.
Wow.
But more importantly, Bill, do having better qualifying questions give you a better idea of the price range? They give you a better idea of whether you're in front of a prospect who will pay that price. To me, that's the first qualifying step you need to take. And one of the places we as sales professionals spend way too much time. I had a prospect on the yesterday afternoon, late in the day, who is all about it. She wanted to hire me, but in the first couple of questions, there's just no budget there. It wasn't good. I mean, I liked her. We could have had a great conversation. I could have closed that deal, but I was trying to qualify first whether there's enough value for her for the budget. So anyway,
that is, I tell you what, wow, price. We can run with this for weeks on end, but hey, let's jump to the book, because the book, great book. I read it this week. Here it is. The Time to Win by Jay Baer. What did you like about the book?
I love everything about this book, but the reason I feel like it's relevant for today's podcast is the fact that this is all about value proposition. Basically, the time to win is what Jay is saying is speed is huge value to customers today. But the way that he came to it, I just had the luxury of interviewing Jay yesterday on my other podcast, was that he was listening to a lot of different things going on with customers in the market, and they were being labeled a lot of different ways. But what he got down to was something that we value post-COVID is our time. And if you can give customers back time, then you give them something of value, and that increases price. In fact, kind of to discount, to underline what we said before, I think his research shows that 50% of customers would be willing to pay more to increase their access or speed of getting things. But it's also, I love the fact that he did the book small. You can read it in about 20 minutes, because he said there was no way he could write a book about speed and make it difficult to read. Great book, great research. The Time to Win, Jay Baer. We'll put it in the show notes.
I tell you what, I read the book the other morning while I was waiting for a person to show up for breakfast. And I literally, because I thought I'd start it, and I actually finished it and posted a 5-star review before the gentleman showed up for breakfast. So it wasn't that he was late. I was just early, but that's always me.
Yep.
Anyway, okay. Lightning round. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Top 10 ways to keep your value proposition relevant. Go.
Number one, at least every quarter, go on a listening tour with customers.
2, ask your customer early on, how do you go about making decisions like this for other things?
Yeah, notice when you feel like like sales are slowing down a little bit, and that maybe that's a clue that the value proposition isn't landing.
Go back to customers that you've sold to, picking up on the listening tour, and ask them, how have they benefited from what you sold? And see how their outcome changed versus what you initially thought it was. That's going to give you indications of what you need to change.
Yeah, log customer complaints. Every time you hear customers complain, write it down, write it down, write it down.
And embrace the customer complaint, call them, because again, if you don't allow them to call you and vent on you, guess what? They're going to vent on somebody else. So I want to understand that, because again, I always have to keep, and I'll use McDonald's. Let's use McDonald's for a quick second as a value. Their value proposition has changed dramatically since they started in 1955. It's changed dramatically. Why? Because the marketplace has changed. So regardless of who you are, your value proposition will change. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that look for trends. When you log customer complaints, when you're listening, take a lot of notes and look for trends. When things start to pop up, that tells you there's a new need in the marketplace.
Look for changes within your ICP or ICPs, your ideal customer profiles, because the ideal, and Jay brings this out in his book, The Need for Speed, that your value proposition for one group is going to be different than another group. Make sure and be prepared to address the different issues.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to keep your value proposition relevant, pay attention to what your competitors are doing and how they're marketing themselves in the marketplace. If they're starting to shift, their value propositions, maybe it's time to look at yours.
I'll share one more. You share one more. We'll close it out. Never walk away from your value proposition because you think it's wrong. You only walk away because the customer is just not responding to it.
Yeah, I'd ask the customer. I do a little focus group with my customers and just say, this is how we're positioning ourselves in the marketplace. How relevant is that for you?
Hey, great show today. We want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Hey, leave us a review, would you? Because we always need more reviews. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
And remember, what am I going to say?
Don't worry about it.
No.
Uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
I wanted to throw in a piece because we haven't talked about the mastermind group. We haven't talked about the mastermind group. We do want you, because jump out to saleslogicpodcast.com. You're going to see a banner there to join the masterclass. We've had a number of people who are chiming in here who are members of the masterclass. Get involved in the masterclass. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we will see you right back here next week, 8 a.m. Eastern, for another episode of Sales Logic. Until then, send us your questions at saleslogicpodcast.com. Join us at the Sales Logic Mastermind. And as always, you are an amazing audience. We could not do this show without you. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.